Okay, this is my first ever attempt at live streaming here, so we're going to try out some software and see how it goes and have a good laugh along the way. Today I got a reported issue on nvQuickSite 1.4.1. Someone in the DNN community reported an issue and took a look at that issue and wanted to kind of dig deeper and see if we could figure out the problem with it. And so I'll switch over my screen now. For those of you that aren't familiar with nvQuickSite, it is an installer for DNN platform, and that is an open source content management system on the .NET framework stack. So built this installer, and it is kind of the de facto standard for installing DNN, so a lot of people in the community use it. So an issue was reported today on the GitHub repo for nvQuickSite, and the issue is caused by us trying to solve another issue that was included in the 1.4.1 release that was done last night. But in this case, we've got an issue with the release candidates not downloading properly, or actually they're downloading fine, but once it gets to the point where it's installing the site from the downloaded install package, it is not recognizing that file. So I want to dig in and see what we can figure out here, and see if we can fix this and put in a pull request to get it the fix included in the next version. So I'm going to open up Visual Studio here where I actually already have the code. What I've got here is a local folder on my C drive for dev, nvquick, and then site. And this is a clone of the repo on GitHub. So this is an open source product, so feel free to check it out at your convenience. Maybe this will give you a little bit of encouragement on how everything's laid out. Just a quick walkthrough on the project structure here. There's actually two Visual Studio projects in here. One is the actual application, nvQuickSite, and the other is the installer for it. So I won't go into a whole lot of details here. I just want to kind of get to testing this this software out that I'm using for streaming, and also go ahead and try to find the issue in nvQuickSite that was reported. So I'm going to go into the start.cs file, and this both has a design aspect to it as well as a code behind it, but this is the main kind of interface that sits inside of nvQuickSite. And what is happening, actually let me just walk through what is happening first. I've got nvQuickSite actually installed as an application, and I'm not running this in Visual Studio right now. But I'm going to go ahead and run nvQuickSite and show you what the issue is so that we're all on the same page. When we launch nvQuickSite, it runs as an administrator every single time because it has to have some elevated permissions to be able to do what it does. So I've got nvQuickSite up here running, and we're going to choose the latest release candidate. If you have your settings, your nvQuickSite settings set up to show release candidates, you may be wanting to test the latest release getting ready to come out and all that. This is the way to do that. You can come into your user settings and make sure that this box is selected for show release candidates, and that when that is selected, if there is a release candidate out on the DNN platform GitHub repo, it will show here under the download install packages, and this will be the particular release candidate. So if we were in release candidate 2 for 9.6.1, then RC2 would show up here instead of RC1. It's only ever going to show one release candidate. So seems like everything else is working good in nvQuickSite, but this particular issue is related to the release candidates. And you won't see release candidates unless there's actually a release candidate out there right now. So we would be in between version 9.6.0 and 9.6.1, and we're putting out a release candidate before the release of 9.6.1. So that's why the release candidate is showing up. So don't be alarmed if it doesn't show up, because we may not have a release candidate out there at the time that you're running this. All right, so I've selected the release candidate. We're going to go next here. Now I've already downloaded this, but I'm going to do it again just to kind of show you how this works. So I'll go ahead and download it again, and we'll see that download with the progress bar there, and it will automatically advance to the next screen here. Give that just a second. Okay, and now I want to give it a site name of DNN 961RC1, just so that I know what it is. I've already got a base folder set up here in my C drive, and then it automatically sets the install subfolder to the same thing as the site name. So we're good there. So I'm going to click next, and it's letting me know that if you already have this, and I've already tried this, that's why it's warning me now that folder already exists. So it's letting me know that if we choose yes, it's going to replace everything that's already set up there. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes so that we can get through this. And this is the screen for the database info, and it's got the database name already populated to be the same thing as the site name, so that's good. And it already has my local database server name, and I've got it set up to where it'll be accessible via local in parentheses there. We'll use Windows authentication. We'll go next, and this is where the error should actually happen. So the error pops up, and what it's saying is that it could not find the file, program files, x86, nvNative, nvQuickSite, and then downloads folder in there. Now, nvQuickSite under the program files there under nvNative is actually where nvQuickSite is installed. There is a folder inside of that location that stores all of the downloads that you may have done over time. And notice the file name is 9.6.1-RC1. That does not look right. So therein lies the problem on this. So we should be expecting a much longer file name, and I'll go to that directory, by the way, just so you can kind of see what is in there. So I've got my Windows Explorer open here now, and this is the download directory that it is referencing. And notice that the release candidate for RC1 is actually that file name. So we definitely have a problem here in this. So one of the things about nvQuickSite is it does store local package information that you have retrieved. What we're actually doing in nvQuickSite is actually getting all of the packages that are on the releases of the DNN platform repo on GitHub. So we're actually using the GitHub API to retrieve all of the current packages on that. So I am going to actually go into this packages.json file, and that's where it maintains a local list of all those. And I just want to double check and make sure that this packages.json file makes sense and that it has the right information in it. So I'm actually going to open this file up in Visual Studio Code. So I'll open with code. All right. So now that we have that file open, we should be able to find the release candidate here in the file. So if we scroll down, we're looking for the DID, which is the download ID for this, and we use that within nvQuickSite. So let's scroll on down. Actually, I can just do a search here for RC, and we'll go, RC. and we'll go to, let's see, how about DNN-platform-RC. We should only have one entry in it, and it should be the one that we're talking about. So this actually looks good. This is the correct DID for that, correct name for it. There should only ever be one entry in the package.json file or packages.json file here. And by the way, this packages.json file should not be confused with package.json for those of you using npm or yarn for package management. This is actually just a file that we use to maintain a current list of all of the releases of DNN platform. All right, so we've got that. We've got the version here, and that's actually pulled right off of GitHub. So we look here, we're basically using the tag, which is v-9.6.1-rc1. So that looks good there. And let me see here. The URL looks good. The file name looks good. So yeah, that's matching up. The packages.json file looks good, and the file is actually here. So we must have a problem somewhere else. Let's take a look back on GitHub on the a recent pull request that was made to fix something else, because I have a bit of a suspicion that one of the pull requests that we did, it fixed one piece of the puzzle but didn't get everything else fixed. So I'm going to go to the closed pull requests here, and let's go back. I think it was this one here. Yeah, fixes the failed download of RCs. And I want to look and see what we did here, just to kind of give us a basis for what we're looking at. Let's look at the files changed. I think it was a pretty simple change that was done here to remove a section of code here. So yeah, so here we were doing a check previously. On the left is what used to be. That was, we were checking to see if the selected item value of the product name drop down in nvQuickSite is not equal to DNN-platform-RC, and if it's not, it does this particular logic, and if it is an RC, it was doing something funky here, and that was never working. So this just removed that else statement and really the whole if statement and everything. We decided that it was right to perform this logic here that used to be on lines 196 through 198 for every situation. So yep, that looks good. So my guess is we've got somewhere else that has a similar kind of logic for it, but we can get a bit of a hint here as to where this might be in the code. Notice it says read and extract install package. So that's part of the message here. So I should be able to find that section of code that would display a message with that heading or title bar in it. So let's go back over to Visual Studio. And I'm going to go into start.css because I'm assuming that is where we are looking at. So I'm going to do a search here for read and extract. All right, good. There's only one instance of that, and here we are. So without going into too much detail here, this happens right after the database info tab in there, and we click next. So this is the logic that gets kicked off. So let's look and see what's happening here. I noticed that a path gets passed in, and that path should be the path to the zip file for the install package of DNN release candidate 1 for 9.6.1. So you'll notice I've put a breakpoint here. So let's do this. I'm going to close the instance of of nvQuickSite that was running the error. And I may have to kill this. Let's see. I'll just X out of it. Okay, good. Looks like it shut down good. So let's actually run it with the code. So I'm going to make sure that I'm in debug mode here, which I am. and I'm going to click start here, and that's going to compile the project. And once we get to the proper place there, we're going to hit that breakpoint, and we should be able to see what open path is at that point. So we'll give this just a minute here to do that. And it should open the window there. Oh wait, there we go. All right, so I'm gonna go through this process just like we did before with the installed app, but this time we're running it from the code, from the source code here. So let's go next, because we're gonna do the release candidate. And it should warn me, oh, I had another breakpoint set there, so let me get rid of that breakpoint, and I'm gonna hit F5 to continue. All right. So now it's saying, well, you've already downloaded this install package. Do you want to replace it by downloading it again or not? Well, we know that that package is good. We've kind of proven that that file exists in the downloads folder within the install location for nvQuickSite. And we've also made sure that the packages.json file looks good. So I'm pretty confident this area is working just fine. So I'm going to say no here. That way it will actually leverage the file that is already there. Now, one thing that you can do just to prove that, at least get a little bit of sense that that is correct. If you click back here, you should see that the local install package was set to the proper file, which it was. So that's another good sign. If this looked wrong, then we might have a problem with where this gets updated, but that looks right. So I think that part of the logic is working good. All right, we'll go next. And of course, it's going to ask me if I want to use the local install package. So we'll just say yeah, because it already has the correct one in there. All right, so I'll leave this information the same as it was before. And of course, it's going to warn me that it's going to delete everything and replace it. And yeah, we'll say yes. All right, we'll go to database info. We'll leave that the same, and we'll go next. Now at this point, I would expect it to hit that breakpoint. And it does. So now we're in the read and extract method here. And we should be able to see what open path is. So is that the correct path? Now in this case, we're running it in source here, so it's not going to be in the installed location. That's not where the download sits. It actually is going to sit in the bin debug folder you'll see here within the project, and this is the location of the project. So we're treating this like the other. So that actually looks good. The path actually looks good. So let's see what happens here if we do an F10 to step over. All right, so we step over, and we'll step over again. I'm looking at the autos down here and just making sure that all this looks good, and it does. Okay, so we should be able to go right through this. I'm gonna it's gonna step through each asset that's in the zip there. Let's see. I'm just kind of stepping through this. All right, this is actually looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click here, and I'm going to run to my cursor. So I'm going to get through all that for each loop. So it's actually done something there. So it's looking good so far. Step over that. Step over that. Oh, let that go. Huh. So we're not actually getting the error here. So what that tells me is that when we're using the local file, it actually is doing it correctly. And open path is correct when it comes into here. So by choosing to use the local file, that is actually working. So I think we need to, once this gets done, we'll cancel this out and run it again. but in this time we won't use the local file. We'll actually download it again. So that tells me the logic is somewhere else that's treating the online package version instead of the local version that's messing us up here. So we're getting closer. All right. So I'm just going to let this fly because I think it's gotten past the point where it was having problems before. I'm going to hit F5 here to keep going. Yep, so this looks like that would work. So let's close this out, which will stop the debugger here. And let's do it again. And this time we're going to use the online version of the release candidate instead of the local version. All right, should start up here momentarily. All right, so let's click next here because we're choosing this, and by default it's going to try to do the download install packages. All right, so I'm going to do next, and it should prompt me because it knows that I've already downloaded it. So this time, instead of saying no, I'm going to say yes, and we'll re-download it. And again, we believe this part of it's working just fine. So it re-downloads and it automatically goes to the next tab. We're going to choose the same thing, and it'll prompt us to let us know it's going to delete everything. So I'm going to say yes and let it do that. And then we'll accept the database info and hit next here. So it should hit our breakpoint again at this point. And it does. So this time let's take a look at OpenPath. Aha, notice this is not the correct path. So we've now found, okay, so downloads, all right, that matches the actual error message that's going to come up. So this clues us in that OpenPath is not correct coming into this method. So we need to go, and I'm going to go ahead and just stop this. There's no sense in going forward. We know that the problem is with whatever is being passed into this. So I'm going to stop the debugger. And we are going to search for where this method is called. So I'm going to right click and go to find all references to this. Okay, it looks like there's one other place that uses this, so that's good. We're only going to find one spot here, so I'm going to double click on that. Now that's still in the same file. It's in start.css. My guess is it's in the method that runs right after we click next on database info. So let's go up here and look. Yep, that is the click event for the next button on the database info tab. So yep, this is exactly where we need to be. So let's look at this. This accepts OpenPath, right? So this text local install package.txt evidently is not right at this point. So we could set a breakpoint and take a look at that and prove it, but that, my guess is that is actually that stripped down version of the value that is in the version drop down on the very first tab. So let's go up and kind of see where this may actually be set on here. So let's go up just a little bit in this method, and we're looking for where text local install package kind of gets passed in, or if it gets passed in. Okay, it doesn't get passed in, so it's just reading it. So now that means we really need to go and take a look at where this is being set. So I'm going to highlight that and copy it. I'm going to do a find, and we'll start looking at all the places. Actually, let me just do a Control Shift find. We'll find it in all files. So let's find all. That way we'll have a good list here of wherever it's used. I'll make this a little bit bigger. All right. So it looks like it's not used a whole lot of times, so that's good. We should be able to find this pretty good. All right, this first one here is commented out, so we know that's not the problem. Let's go to the next one here. All right, That is where we were before. That was the click event for the database info next. So that's not it. We know it's wrong. The value is wrong when it gets here. So let's look and see where it's set. All right. Now this is higher up in the file. Let me do a sort here by line. That way we can start at the top. Okay, so the very first instance is here. All right, what it's saying, this is the method that displays the package path. Let's see, I'm not sure exactly what that's used for. Oh yeah, okay, so this is basically populating the product version combo box. So that's the drop down that's on the very first tab. So this is calling display package path anytime that changes so that it's actually setting it. So notice we've got a similar logic here as we had in the other thing that we fixed. So it's checking to see if product name is not equal to the release candidate. And if it's not, then it's getting information from this packages object. So we're going to go there in just a minute, I think, and take a look at that. But let's kind of keep that in mind. This logic is working when it's not the release candidate. So we know that actually works. And the fact that we found the release candidate in the packages.json file, then we know that's actually part of the packages that are saved. So my guess is we're going to be able to get rid of this, and that'll help. Right here, it's setting URL to something that is not correct. That's the same problem that we were having in the other logic. So anyways, I know I'm jumping around just a bit, but this is suspicious right here. So I think we're going to go ahead and just make the change here. There's probably some other areas as well that's causing problem. And you may be saying, well, I mean, you know, we're looking for text. What was it? Text local install package dot text. We're looking for that being set, but actually that gets used. You'll see here. Where is it? Okay, yeah. So after this logic runs, we're taking URL, and if the file exists, then we're setting it to the package full path. But package full path is download directory plus file name. Well, the file name here, even though that line looks exactly the same here almost, this file name is created from the package URL, which is in the package.json file. Whereas this one is built from URL, which is really just a value of the product version. And that explains why the message is the way that it was. Let's look back at GitHub on the issue again. Let's go back here and go to the issue that was reported. Oops, let me go here. Go to that first issue there. And yeah, so the message here, it's actually the last part, which should be the full file name in the downloads directory. It's not. It's 9.6.1-RC1. And that's the same thing that's in the version drop down on the very first tab of the install package info. So yeah, I'm pretty confident here that this needs to be corrected, similar to the other block of code that needed to be corrected here. So I'm actually going to go ahead and just get rid of this if block. Oh, actually, before I do that, this is my first change here. So what I want to do is I want to make a little bit of get here. Let's see, I'm on the wrong thing. Let's go to here. This issue number is 252. So the way I like to run this is I've got the latest copy from master branch on the repo. So I'm actually going to do a get checkout, and I'm going to create a new branch with that and call it issue-252. That way I can work on a branch here for this particular issue, and then that'll help me when I submit a pull request. So let's go ahead and do that. I don't really want to ever work off of master here, so that is why I wanted to do this before I made any changes. All right, so if I go back into Visual Studio, you'll notice at the bottom right hand corner, we are indeed on that new branch that is there. So we're good. Now we can start making changes to the code. So we're in here. I've got that selected. I'm going to get rid of that. And then I'm going to take these two lines and I'm going to move them out. And then I'll get rid of this entire self block, because this logic really will work regardless. I think there was a point in time where the release candidates were not stored in the packages.json file, so that would explain why that other logic was there. So somewhere along the way, we just got lost in our logic here. There's a lot of code here, so it doesn't surprise me one bit. Okay, so I'm going to now, since this was changed, I'm going to go ahead and just put a breakpoint here so that when we do run this again, we'll be able to step into that and make sure everything looks good with the file name once it gets through there. All right, so we have found one place there where we got a problem. We have fixed that. So now let's go down, let's back in our search results down here, and let's go to the new area here. That's where we were. All right, let's go to 225. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Yeah, that looks pretty good there. Maybe path.get file name. Let's see, we're in the get online version here now. So actually this is the method that got changed right before 1.4.1, and I'll show you here. Notice this piece here, 184 through 187. That used to be in an if statement similar to what I just changed, and that was only being done that way for non-release candidates. So that is now being done for all versions. So I think this right here looks good. Let's go down to the next instance of it. Go to 256. Now, here we go. So this is the where the method where the download file completed event gets hit. This is after the file is downloaded, after the first tab is hit. So at this point, yep, this is a similar logic here. So we're doing something different for the file name if it is a release candidate. So let's go ahead and fix this too. I'm going to get rid of the if. I'm going to move those two lines over, give a little bit of spacing there, and I'm going to get rid of the else block here, and that should fix this with the proper file name, since it is stored in the packages.json file too. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and we'll put a breakpoint here as well. Since we made that change, we'd want to check it everywhere where we've made a change, just to prove to ourselves that it is working the way that it should. All right, we only have a few more to go here, so let's go down to this one. Let's see, this is where the where open file dialog opens, and that's on the first tab where you want to use a local package. This right here looks good because if you remember, we went through this one time and we didn't get the error, and that was when we used the local file package or install package. So this right here looks good. I don't see any strange logic for release candidates and treating those any different. It's just looking for that local file and setting the file name accordingly. Okay, so that looks good. This next one is there. Let's see. This is just checking to make sure that there is a value in that field before it goes and gets the online version. This is install pack. Yeah, this is right after the first tab for the next button. It just wants to make sure that there's a value in that field before it goes. And if there's not a value in that field, it assumes that we're getting the online versions of the install packages. So yeah, this looks good here. And we saw this one earlier. That one's commented out, so no problem there. And then we're back to where it gets called here. So I think really those two areas there are where we really needed to make the change. So well, I think we're safe now to run this. Now I'll go ahead and build it first. Now actually starting will build it anyways, but I like to just do a rebuild here just to make sure everything looks good on the build. And we're in debug mode, so we should expect that to not create an installer for it. It'll be a debug installer, but it won't be the final one. And all that looks good. So we've got 2 succeeded and no failures and none skipped, so we're good there. So let's go ahead and run it. Now we've set our 2 additional breakpoints, and we still have the 1 breakpoint where the open path was incorrect coming in. So I believe checking all those 3 points will give us a good warm fuzzy here that we've fixed the issue. So let's go run this. We'll click start. And we should see it pop up here shortly. Okay, it has already hit one of those breakpoints, and that's because it actually is populating that drop down for the version numbers there. So let's go ahead and step through this and see what's going on. So it's actually found 54 releases on the DNN platform repo there. So I'm going to hit F10 here. Go to the next. So we've got all of our packages there. That looks good. Let's go one more. I'm going to hit F10, and we just want to make sure that this file name is correct here for those. Let's see. Yep, there's our RC. So yeah, we're looking good here. So that's the URL. That is the correct one, and it is setting the file name accordingly to the actual file. Now this is the very first one in here that we're seeing here, but I'm going to let this go. I'm going to hit F5. It's going to probably hit this a bunch again. That was the very first one that it found, so it's actually going to call this. This is in a loop. There is first time. Well, it gets called within a for each type loop there. So I don't want to sit here and go through this every single one of these, but I'll just show you that it goes to the next one, which I would expect to be the 9.6.0 release. So if we look at URL, oh, I'm sorry, no, it's getting the install package. The last one was the upgrade package. So we'll let this go F5, and we'll come to F10 twice here, and the URL this time should be, okay. All right, I obviously don't know what I'm talking about. I would have to look at that logic there, but I'm going to let this fly and remove that breakpoint because it does seem to be doing the right thing. And this should let our interface come up. Oh, it's actually already up, but it's going to go and activate that window. Okay, so we're looking good here. We're going to go next, but we don't want to use the local install package. It actually remembered that from my last usage there, so I'm going to click next, but I'm going to choose to download it again. So I don't want to use the local install package, so we're going to click no. And it says it's already downloaded, but would you like to download it again? I'm going to go ahead and download it again because we know that was the logical path that was messing up before. So we'll download that. All right, so now it has hit the other breakpoint that we had. This was in the download file completed method. So now that our file is downloaded, it's hitting this, and we want to step over this and step over that. We should expect this URL to look good. Yep, it does. And the file name should be the full file name. Yes, it is. All right, so now that's looking really good. That's exactly what we need. So I'm going to let this one fly. I'm going to do continue, F5. So we're looking good here. We're on the site info. I'm going to do next on this because this is place that I want to put it in the site name in the subfolder. Yep, I'm going to let it replace those. And that is the correct database information. Let's go next. Now this time I would expect it to have no error, but it's going to hit that breakpoint that we still had set from before. But this time I would expect when I go over open path that it's going to be correct. And it is. We're looking good. So that is the correct file. It is no longer the value of the version drop down. So yeah, this is looking real good. I'm going to go ahead and remove this breakpoint and let it continue. Yep, we're looking good. So it's downloading. I believe we have resolved this issue. So I thought this would be a fun one to go through here and, you know, let you guys see a little bit of how we typically go through issues like this.